The 2025 NFL schedule is officially out. We are fired up to bring to you the biggest game of each week of the 2025 NFL regular season. We're not scripting this out. We are going through the schedule week by week and coming up with the biggest game of each week that I'm just sort of reacting to and just giving it to you that way instead of being like, all right, here's the first game of each week that I think and have everything pre-recorded. We're just going to walk it through, think about these teams, and have a whole bunch of fun breaking down this schedule. So week one, Cowboys and Eagles. This is going to be that divisional matchup. It's that Thursday, Sunday night NBC type of game, but I don't think that's the biggest game of the week here. You know, the Dallas Cowboys really aren't that much of a threat to anybody. We know that Philly has a better roster, although this is their banner night and they're the defending champs. Don't exactly like that to be a huge game. The Green Bay Packers and the Detroit Lions, which looks like the marquee CBS game. This is going to be a big one. Divisional matchups, two teams that made the playoffs. Both of them were competing to the end to get in there, and Green Bay looked like they wouldn't get the division. So overall, Baltimore Ravens and the Buffalo Bills on a Sunday night. That one looks pretty big. The Chicago Bears, Minnesota Vikings, J.J. McCarthy and Caleb Williams squaring off. They never faced each other in college, but we had the national champion J.J. McCarthy there playing for Michigan. Now he's with Minnesota. Caleb's with Chicago. But I think the Kansas City Chiefs and Los Angeles Chargers on that Friday, the true game of this entire week, because we have seen the Kansas City Chiefs the last couple of seasons really being a little bit vulnerable last year. In the Super Bowl, they were a little bit vulnerable 2 seasons ago when they could have gotten beat by the 49ers against the Eagles when they won that one. They were vulnerable. They needed a call late in that game to be able to seal it. The Los Angeles Chargers have been close, but haven't been able to get over the hump. Last season, that performance against the Houston Texans left all of us with just a bad taste in our mouth. Herbert threw, 3 picks all year? And then in that playoff game against Houston, he throws 4, so it just didn't sit right. Kansas City is a lot more vulnerable than people are thinking that haven't been paying attention and just think the Chiefs are a bandwagon to hop on. So week one, Chiefs-Chargers. I think that the Chargers have the potential to win this division, and a lot of that is going to be riding on that first game of the season. So that's how we get to do things. Now you know, that's how we're going to break down each of the weeks. So week 2, Washington Commanders at the Green Bay Packers. We know how disappointed Green Bay was, how the end of their 2023 season ended with Love throwing that pick against the 49ers. They could have gone to the NFC Championship game to play Detroit. We know that last year, the way that it looked against Philly in that wild card round, that it just left a bad taste in their mouth overall. So that's a big matchup. Chicago Bears and the Detroit Lions, a divisional battle. These two teams squaring off in a 1 Eastern time start. And man, I think that this could be huge. Obviously, Ben Johnson going up against his former team in Detroit. That one has some weight to it. The Sunday night game is Atlanta and Minnesota. So Michael Penix Jr. and J.J. McCarthy, the former first-round picks from 2 seasons ago. But the Super Bowl rematch, the Philadelphia Eagles and the Kansas City Chiefs, that's the game of the week. We are looking at Kansas City. Are they 0-1? Did they get beat by the Chargers? Did the Philadelphia Eagles take care of business at home against the Dallas Cowboys? Where do these two teams stand so early when you have a Super Bowl rematch that is obviously going to have a ton of weight to it? So we'll see what direction both of these teams are going at the earlier parts of this year. It was a close one between, honestly, the Washington and Green Bay and that Chicago and Detroit game, but those teams are probably going to have the vote later on in the year for the biggest game. So Kansas City and Philly, week 2, that is the biggest game. So week 3, we're starting to warm up into it. It's almost like we're already in week 3 already. That's always the way it works. Looking at that Monday night game, the Detroit Lions and Baltimore Ravens, I scroll all the way down. Chicago Bears and the Cowboys. Cowboys are always a big draw. That Sunday night game, the Chiefs and the Giants, I talked about that one on some short videos. I don't really see the weight of that one. And the rest of the game, Bengals, Minnesota, like that's got some weight. But Rams, Eagles, back-to-back weeks. Philadelphia Eagles with the biggest game of the week. And now why I think that, I mean, that just sort of jumped out to me when I see that there on the schedule, is that these teams were so close in that divisional round, that snow game. What was a better atmosphere for the playoffs than that snow game in Philadelphia where the Rams are driving there at the end of the game? They had that Saquon Barkley run, but they missed a point after touchdown, so it's only a 13-point game. They go right down the field. They get a stop. They sack Jalen Hurts, get the ball back, drive, big shot down to Cup or Nakua. Actually, can't remember. I want to say it was Nakua. I'm going to stick with Nakua. And then they don't punch it in. Jalen Carter gets some pressure, and the Eagles survive. And that was the hardest game by far. They whooped the Packers. They whooped Washington, and they just annihilated the Kansas City Chiefs. But that was their only sort of stretcher, was against the Los Angeles Rams. I think that the Rams are one of the best teams in the NFC, like top 2 or 3 here, and I like that to be the game, and that's going to be a lot of fun. I mean, that's only an afternoon game on Fox. Are you kidding me? Like, that's going to be some fun. So, game of the week, Eagles, Rams, week 3. Okay, Thursday night, Seattle and Arizona. Now, that's not speaking to me a whole much. In Seattle, you've got, Marvin Harrison Jr. with Arizona going up against the divisional former teammate, Jackson Smith and Jigba. Arizona's got a couple more Buckeyes, Cody Simon and Denzel Burke, and we'll see if Kyler's headed in the right direction. Arizona took Walter Nolan, Seattle took Gray Zabel, so that's a fun matchup. Minnesota Vikings and the Steelers in an international game. A lot of those international slates, honestly, weren't great. This is curious. Is it going to be Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers? As of making this video, Aaron Rodgers does not have a team yet that he is a part of. Got the Eagles and the Bucks, looks like a good one. Bears, Raiders, that's fun. So, Chiefs, Ravens. CBS 125, it's going to be Jim Nantz and Tony Romo and Lamar Jackson playing against Patrick Mahomes, likely in week 4. Hopefully we get to see that, and neither of those guys are hurt. So the reason why I sort of view that Chargers and the Chiefs game as being so important, like that is what I originally went with, and why I went with that being the biggest game of week 1, is because in the AFC now, in order to get to the Super Bowl, you've got to beat 2 of the elites. What I mean by that, the elites are Mahomes, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, and Lamar Jackson. Well, Josh Allen beat Lamar, but he couldn't beat Mahomes. If you get the number 1 seed, you don't have to necessarily play 2 of those guys. Like, Patrick Mahomes played C.J. Stroud, and he just had to play Josh Allen at home in the AFC Championship game. He was able to bypass playing a Lamar Jackson or a Josh Allen twice. Because if you have to beat those guys twice, look no much further than Josh Allen losing to Mahomes. Like, beating one of those 2 guys 2 times, beating them twice, is just so tough to do. So Baltimore, after that tough end of last year, we remember the first game of the season, them with that tight, right at the back of the end zone. My goodness, that was tough. So Baltimore Ravens, Kansas City Chiefs, that in an afternoon slot week 4 looks like a whole bunch of fun. We'll see if Rashee Rice's injury, how healthy he is. They're putting a lot more emphasis on Xavier Worthy based off the reports coming out of the Chiefs camp. And the Baltimore Ravens with a great draft. Mike Green they took. They also got the kid out of Georgia. They got Malachi Starks. I'm looking at the schedule. So all these draft picks are from here. That's what I want to come out with here. Like, this is what I'm just sort of thinking of. All the knowledge I'm working with right now is just based off my head, and I'm just working through the schedule. So any of these players I say, hope I've gotten pretty much like memorized. We're just trying to get better at this. Understand, if you're at this point of the video, you're enjoying the content somewhat, and hopefully you're subscribing and staying tuned for more, because we're having a whole bunch of fun just coming at you with this and doing it. So week 5. Chiefs, Jags, nope. Monday night, don't think so. New England and Buffalo, like that could be pretty interesting on a Sunday nighter. Bengals, Lions, oof. Now that looks like a fun matchup. Okay, Jets, okay. Bengals, Lions, week 5. What are the Detroit Lions in the 2025 season? They lost their offensive coordinator, Ben Johnson. They lost Aaron Glenn, their defensive coordinator. How does this thing work? The first couple of weeks for Detroit, they're going on the road to Cincy, and what does Cincy's defense look like? How are things meshing with Burrow, Higgins, and Jamar Chase? At that point, we don't know where Trey Hendrickson's going to be. Is he back on that team? So the Cincinnati Bengals, we know with a healthy Burrow, and if they protect him somewhat, or even if they don't protect him somewhat, they still can have a prolific offense. It's just the defense is just not got to be bottom 8 in the league, and they can be a Super Bowl contender. That's all it has to be when you have an elite processor like Joe Burrow. So afternoon game, that's probably going to be America's game of the week. Bengals and the Lions in week 5. That just sounds like a fun matchup. That's going to be great. Thursday night, Eagles and the Giants. Nope. Rams and the Ravens. Wow. Sunday, October 12th, 10 o'clock California time on Fox. That looks like a matchup. We'll put that in the back pocket. Lions and the Chiefs. My goodness, a rematch of the opener 2 seasons ago when they played on that Thursday game. Those Falcons. Bears, Commanders. My goodness. Monday Night Football. Chicago Bears and the Washington Commanders in a rematch of what was honestly a horrible football game. I watched that whole thing. I'm a Bears fan, and that was a terrible football game. The Bears were out of sorts. Washington could move the football plenty. Like, they had 270 offensive yards in the first half with 9 points to show for it. They just were playing ugly. Tons of penalties in that one. We saw the Bears handing it off to Eric Kramer, an offensive lineman, and couldn't score. So Jaden Daniels, the second overall pick, 2024, against Caleb Williams, a rematch of last year. Both of them Heisman Trophy winners Monday night. At this point, it's early enough so that, let's say Chicago's 2-3, or even Washington, they have a tough stretch. They're 2-3. It's just still a huge game. 2-3, you need to win that football game. That's big. So I like it early enough in the season where we know this is going to be a huge football game. As we get further along into the schedule, it's going to be tough to project everything because of the fact that some of these games might not even be that important because teams are a whole lot worse than they thought they would be. So Bengals, Steelers, week 7, there's that possibility. Eagles, Vikings, that looks like a good matchup in week 7. Lions, Bucks, we got the Seahawks, Texans on Monday Night Football, Commanders and the Cowboys. So this is, okay, so there's nothing that's fully jumped out to me yet. Rams, Jags, Colts and the Chargers, that one. Cowboys, Commanders, we already saw. How about we go with one that's going to be a little bit on the edge of what people might like? Because Texans, Seahawks, that one just sort of screams intrigue to me. It's going to be a Monday night game at Seattle, so there's the element of the 12th man involved. C.J. Stroud and Houston. They've not been talked about a whole lot there in the AFC. It's always Justin Herbert, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar, all of these quarterbacks. They're all talked about. But C.J. Stroud's had a very good start to his career. Houston's in a extremely weak division, as we know. That schedule looks to be panning out pretty well for Houston, as we've seen. An under-the-radar team heading into next year. They go out and they take, Jalen Noel and Higgins, the 2 wide receivers from Iowa State, so they're deciding to revamp up. They lost Stephon Diggs, but that's fine. They've got Nico Collins there, Tank Dell. So Seattle Seahawks and the Houston Texans, I like that matchup. Monday Night Football, Week 7. What are the Seattle Seahawks with Sam Darnold? Or better yet, is Jalen Milroe going to be in there by the time this game comes around? We don't know. How about would that matchup be? Alabama versus Ohio State, with those starting quarterbacks potentially firing off. So week 7, Seattle and Houston, that's a fun one. Week 8, Vikings Chargers. So we've got McCarthy. How does Minnesota look through the season? How are the Chargers faring? The Jets, Bengals. Okay, so Justin Fields heading back to Ohio. How is he going to fare in that matchup? Bears and the Ravens. That's a fascinating one. At Baltimore, how is Chicago season going? And what about Baltimore? How are they faring in the AFC North? Green Bay, Pittsburgh, the Sunday night game, but and this one's just staring right at me. Washington Commanders at the Kansas City Chiefs again on Monday Night Football. They know how to plan their Monday Night Football games. They really do. So Washington, Jay Daniels, and that team. So they took Connerly there in the first round. They took the left tackle out of Oregon. Kansas City, we know by then that things are generally starting to mesh. They've had struggles in September for a long time. You know that this is a team that's insanely tough to beat in January, but specifically in December. So how about a late game getting closer to Halloween with Mahomes and the Chiefs hosting Jaden Daniels and the Commanders? Because that sophomore slump is a thing. We saw it with CJ Stroud, although he ends up winning another playoff game and they go as far as they did in what was an incredible rookie season from CJ 2 years ago. But is the NFL figuring it out? And this is fascinating because Steve Spagnuolo is as good of a defensive coordinator as anybody. I put him and Vic Fangio in a league of their own in the top two. And we can see that in the history that tells us that teams are able to figure it out. So Spags against Jaden Daniels, I'd look out week 8 for the Kansas City Chiefs to have something up their sleeve in that matchup. Week 9, the Sunday nighter is Seahawks, Commanders. Monday nights, Cardinals, Cowboys. I'm going to say it. Chiefs, Bills. Chiefs, Bills has to be. We knew you have a rematch. Talking about the Chiefs, I understand you might not want to hear about Kansas City all that much, but they are a reigning, 3 back-to-back Super Bowls in a row of appearances, 3 Super Bowls in the last 6 years. Okay, we know how good this team is. So, our AFC Championship game rematch, Chiefs and the Bills, that looks like fun. I wanted to say Minnesota and Detroit in November, because November it does start to shift the tide of what games are important, but that rematch, and again, as I so clearly stated, the importance of that first round bye is just ridiculously pivotal. You got to get that first round bye. So we don't know if this is going to be some sort of a tiebreaker like last year with the Chiefs being able to hold that first round position with Buffalo floundering a little bit throughout the season last year. That first round bye is pivotal. If you're Buffalo, Kansas City, or LA, I've got it there, and then Baltimore. Those are the 4 teams that are vying for the first seed, in my opinion, alongside Houston. I'm going to throw Houston in that bunch for this upcoming season. For that game, a CBS afternoon, Nance and Romo will be on that call for that afternoon game. Chiefs, Bills, fascinating AFC champ game rematch. Week 10, just scrolling all the way down. Monday night, Eagles, Packers. That was week 1 on that Friday last year. We saw them play in the wild card round again in the playoffs last season. Lions and Commanders, that looks like a pretty fascinating matchup. Likely America's game of the week. But I'm thinking San Francisco 49ers and Los Angeles Rams. This was the NFC Championship game a couple of years ago. San Francisco has been a team that was the actual power in the NFC before last year. They had been to the Super Bowl 2 times in 4 years. They were just on that warpath of being that team. Again, I'm saying that even with Philadelphia having beaten the 49ers in that champ game when Brock Purdy got hurt. But what is San Francisco next year? Do they have any juice left in them? Do some of those older players still have it? So by then, this could be the end of their season, losing to the Rams if things aren't turning that right way. If they're 3-6, or are they a 6-3? Are they battling with Los Angeles for the top of the NFC West? This could be a huge matchup. So at Levi Stadium, Rams and the 49ers. I love that matchup. Week 10, Rams 49ers. That's some fun. So week 11, immediately, boom, it's just looking at me in the face. Bears, Vikings. That was this is going to be the rematch of what week 1 is. Jets, Patriots on a Thursday night game, divisional. All right. That could be a fun one. Cowboys, Raiders on a Monday night game. Chiefs, Broncos looks like a good one. And then Lions and Eagles. Wow. Sunday Night Football knows how to get it right. Eagles and the Lions. So what this will mean, again, we talked about the importance of that first overall seed. Last year it wasn't that huge because we saw the Lions get just dominated by the Washington Commanders and Jaden Daniels on their opposite side of the ball. We know Detroit had all of those issues in staying healthy at the end of the year. So many people getting hurt throughout the season. Montgomery and Aiden Hutchinson, all the people that were getting banged up, McNeil and we know Detroit had those issues, but that Sunday night game, we're in November, deep November now, we're in November 16th, Sunday Night Football for a game what could be positioning in the NFC within that conference for that race for that number 1 seed or wild card implications or a divisional game that's stacked up. So this is going to be a huge football game in week 11. Eagles and the Lions. Week 12 immediately, Thursday night football, Bills, Texans. Like that shouts at me that that's going to be huge. We're looking at Ravens, Jets, Packers, Vikings in a divisional showdown. That looks big. I'm going to go with Texans, Bills. It just looked like that one's got some merit to it. Not divisional rivals, obviously, but that same conference, them being both good over the last 2 seasons, obviously, with these quarterbacks. I've got like that first 4, okay? Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, and Joe Burrow. And then I've got Justin Herbert there with CJ Stroud as my 5 and 6. And then it drops off a cliff, in my opinion. It's like those 6 quarterbacks, ridiculous. You got 4 of the elite best in the NFL, and then Herbert and CJ Stroud looking to potentially one day crack into that. We need to see more of it in the playoffs and continue to pile success on there. So Buffalo, Houston, week 12. I think this is teams that are jockeying for position fully for that race to get that 1 seed in the AFC. Week 12 on a Thursday night game. That looks like a super fun matchup to have. And then Thanksgiving, my goodness. Like this slate, Bengals, Ravens on a divisional matchup. I mean, we got Lions, Packers, okay, that's going to be a bunch of fun. Chiefs, Cowboys, you got the Chiefs playing, and next week they're on Christmas. Bears, Eagles on a Black Friday game. Vikings, Seahawks in the afternoon on that day, but wow. Inter-division, Joe Burrow and the Bengals, I think, are back this season, and they're going to make a push. Baltimore Ravens, we know how good they're going to be. Like, they're not going to miss a beat. So Bengals, Ravens, that late kick, if you will, on Thanksgiving. We've already had the early game. Maybe you've had your turkey trot. We saw Chiefs, Cowboys, and now it's Bengals, Ravens, that nightcap between this black and blue divisional rival matchup. My goodness. So what are the Cincinnati Bengals at that point? Is Baltimore having the same success that we would predict them to have, and them squaring off week 13 on Thanksgiving night? Thursday, December 4th, Lions and the Cowboys. That just screams 2 of the darlings of the league. Looking further, Seattle and Atlanta's matchup. Chicago and Green Bay at Lambeau Field, Sunday, December 7th, week 14. That's the game of the week. So you're resuming that rivalry. These teams wouldn't have played yet in 2025 since Chicago went in there with Caleb Williams and beat him on a late game-winning field goal with Kairos Santos. Remember, Jordan Love didn't play in the second half of that game. He got banged up. Christian Watson tore his ACL. That was difficult. But whenever Bears-Packers square off, there's so much history involved with this matchup. Chicago, again, we mentioned them earlier in the year against Washington, that being the game of the week, week 6. So what is Chicago? This is a risk for me to say, even though I'm a Bears fan, it's a risk to say that the Bears are playing a meaningful football game in December. Are they going to be? It's truly been since 2020 when they went 8-8 and slid into a wild card slot in the playoffs with 8-8. Not a great football team, and they expanded the playoffs to 7 teams. So Green Bay and Chicago, like, are they both in the race for the division at this point? Is this a race for a wild card team? Or either of these teams in the hunt for, I would not think the 1 seed, but the history between them, Green Bay and Chicago at Lambeau, week 14, you just have to go with it. So we've got Atlanta and Tampa Bay, Thursday night game. Again, the NFL is incredible at making these schedules. You've got that rematch of a Sunday night game. Michael Penix Jr. said hello to America. Remember me going to New York to be a Heisman finalist? Remember me being a runner-up in the national championship game? Remember that one time when I beat Oregon at home in that crazy matchup? Beat them on a game-winning field goal. Atlanta and Tampa Bay is a fun one on a Thursday night. You've got Bengals and the Ravens again. That one in Cincinnati this time. There's 49ers, Titans, Packers, Broncos. So some of these other divisional matchups. I am going to go with the Falcons and the Bucks, because this is going, again, between the division, and if you look at it, Carolina is making the right strides. I don't think this is the year. I think next season next season, 2026 is where Carolina truly makes strides. The Saints are junk. Like, that team's winning 4 football games. Like, they are in a big heap of trouble with Derek Carr until that contract is fully off with his retirement. But Atlanta, Tampa Bay, great game last year, even with how good Jaden Daniels was at the end of that stretch. This game went to overtime. I think Penix led like a 10, 11-point comeback in that fourth quarter. And this is going to be thick of the race getting to the playoffs, winning that division. They're going to get a home playoff game, whoever obviously wins that division. So Atlanta, Michael Penix against Baker Mayfield and the Bucks squaring off in that revamped receiving core. Mike Evans and Chris Godwin with that injury last season that was unfortunate. They got Emeka Ibuka. Maybe Tez Johnson's working his way a little bit into the rotation for Tampa Bay on the offensive side. So is there a little bit of that if Tez makes his way into that football game against Michael Penix Jr. in Atlanta? Week 16, Rams-Seahawks has the potential on a Thursday night game to be a biggie. The Chargers and the Cowboys in an afternoon slot. The Sunday night game there, Miami and Cincinnati, that immediately has a red flag put on it. Like, is this a game that could be flexed out of it? But immediately, I'm just thinking about the Eagles and the Commanders. An NFC Championship game rematch that late in the season, Week 16, put on a Saturday. They're playing this game on Saturday, December 20th. You know what else is that day? We've talked about on my shorts. The college football playoff is the same day. It's just going to be one of the great all-time days of football. Hopefully the Bears-Packers is going to be meaningful December 20th. But the Commanders and the Eagles going to be happening the same time as the college football playoff game. My goodness. So this game is going to be right there in the terms of deciding. I don't think they've played before in the season until that point. I believe that is the first time in the year. It is. Yeah, they play Week 18, so they're squaring off Week 16, first time they're playing. So at that point, they could both be 10-4, maybe 10-4, one's 11-3 at that point in the year. You've got 10-4, 9-5. Like, that is going to be a huge matchup. Washington's going to be good. I don't know about the same NFC Championship game appearance this year. Like, they've got 11-6 a bit written over it for me, but right there with Philly all the way. So Washington and Philly, my goodness, Week 16, what a matchup that is going to be. Week 17 now, like, we're getting right to the end of it and towards the end here. So we've got the Christmas games, Washington and Dallas, Minnesota and Detroit. I might have to come back to that. And then Denver and Kansas City, the Christmas Day games on that Thursday. On the Sunday, we have Bears 49ers on a Sunday night. Eagles Bills, my goodness. It's just the importance of divisional games at this point is so valuable that I don't know if I could pit an interconference matchup for that slot. Like, Ravens Packers is a fun matchup. But I'm going to go with the matchup of Chargers Texans, a rematch of the wild card round last year, I know. I have a feeling that this game's going to have some weight in the sense of seeding with it. The Chargers and the Texans playing a game that's not yet scheduled. It's sometime Week 17. Again, I'm putting this over Cowboys Commanders on Christmas, over Chiefs Broncos on Christmas, over Vikings Lions. All these divisional matchups. Thank you, NFL, for the divisional matchups on Christmas Day. This is fantastic, but there's something about the Los Angeles Chargers team with Jim Harbaugh, that year two he has with the teams he goes to, and them getting Omarion Hampton, who, when it's all said and done, could be the best back in this draft. They've got more to go with their receiving core. They brought back Khalil Mack. So Texans, Chargers, I'm going out on a whim to say that is the game of the week. Week 17. I don't see the Chargers being bad just because of Harbaugh being a great coach, and Herbert, what he showed last year, showed me he can easily bring his team to 10-7 every year. And then the Houston Texans, like, with that horrible division, they're just going to be right there in the thick of it. So Week 18, all of them divisional matchups. We know this. What is going to be the biggest game of the week? So Saints, Falcons, no. Jets, Bills, no. Bengals, Browns, Broncos, Chargers could be a big matchup. Rams, Cardinals, Packers, Vikings has some merit. We don't exactly know what's going to wind up, but who would I be sitting here as a Chicago Bears fan? Let's go with it. Lions And the Chicago Bears, Week 18 at Soldier Field, the game of the week that week. Are the Bears in a point where if they win, they get a wild card? That's what I'm hoping for as a fan. 9-7 at this point. Maybe they're fighting for it. Maybe they're 8-8 in Detroit. They're fighting. Because with that division, how tough it is, I don't see Detroit being like a 14-2 they were last year, or Minnesota being a 14-2. I see Detroit being something like 11-5 heading into the last game of the season. Like, this is going to be a game where a team might be fighting for a wild card or the division. But as far as we're looking at it, I know I'm seeing Commanders, Eagles on that schedule, but because I went with that in Week 16, I could go with again. I'm looking at Lions, Bears, the importance of Ben Johnson, first-year offensive coordinator with Chicago, playing Detroit. Like, that just has so much weight on it. And again, the Bears' nature and me thinking about that matchup, I understand that it could be a little bit biased. But Bears-Packers, Week 18 finishes off the NFL regular season in Chicago at Soldier Field, the game of the week potential. Hopefully the Bears aren't like 4-12 in that game. I look stupid. And it's actually a big-time matchup. So thank you so much for watching. My goodness, this is incredible. The NFL schedule is out. We're going to do so much more content relating to the upcoming NFL season now the schedule is out. Get ready for all of that. But tell me, where am I wrong? What were the bigger games of the weeks of this new season, and what do you think would have been a bigger matchup that I got wrong? What do you agree with and think that really was going to be the game of the week, and what's going to be the most important game of that week of the NFL season? So I appreciate you so much for watching. Make sure to subscribe for more football content going forward, and I will see you next time.